All right. Yeah, I forgot to do that. All right, we are probably live. Trying to get to my Facebook page. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything Horses and More live podcast. And just give me a minute here. I know I'm switching around. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Sabrina. You're above me, not to my left today. And we've got some great topics as usual. We hope you guys are going to be joining us because we are going to be talking about our video that's coming up Friday on the Everything Horses and More video library. You get the full version. And then of course we produce a snippet or a shorter version for the free training video on YouTube. And this is a continued series. We started Common Mistakes Beginner Riders Make a couple of weeks ago, part 1, and we're going to now continue it for a while because there's so many areas, especially being a trainer and an instructor myself over the years, so many myths and misinterpretations and things that are just being taught incorrectly. So we're going to be continuing that series every week, Common Mistakes Beginner Riders Make. And this Friday specifically, we're going to talk about where your legs should be when you're riding, both in a saddle and when you're riding bareback. So I go into great length, and Sabrina actually is on Lovey very briefly during this video so that I can demonstrate one of the stretching exercises that you can do yourself when you're on your horse, but it helps in the very beginning to have someone physically work with you with this stretch so that you can feel what it needs to feel like in your leg. And then in the video, while I'm pulling down on Sabrina's right leg and she's sitting on Lovey, I'm asking her now to create that muscle awareness memory in her left leg by herself. And you did it. You were able to do that, weren't you?
Yeah, it was really cool.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the importance of this particular stretching exercise that I show in the video is all about rider body awareness. And it's one of the first things that I teach when I teach my students to ride when you mount. And it's in my Mastery Membership Program. It's one of the first things we do when we get on our horse. So it's just amazing. And it's great for anyone like myself that suffers from sciatica nerve. You won't have that issue anymore because you're stretching not just your leg, but you're stretching your pelvis and your hips. And it's just amazing. This is a really powerful video I'm really excited about. And then I think the one after that for next week is going to be about the foot position. So the two go hand in hand. And if you don't have a correct leg position, there's no way you're going to have a good foot position. And these are they seem such, simple,
Very much so.
Problems or simple mechanics, but they are, but while they're simple, they have such a huge effect on us as a rider and on our horses underneath of us. I say in the video that's coming out this Friday about the leg position that this is the #1 solution or secret to being able to ride balanced, fluidly, and securely, whether you're in a saddle or bareback. It has everything to do with your leg position. Isn't that crazy? Your leg position, but there's more to the leg position than just that. But it's
crazy to me how just the legs will do so much for your seat.
Yeah.
Just having the legs.
They'll either get in the
correctly.
way or they'll really
Yes.
help you.
So
Yeah, so it's like
Mhm.
everybody wants to learn how to ride balanced. And while we need to find our balance point,
right.
whether we're in a saddle or bareback, it's not just about that. And to me, the leg is the number one and we really go through that in the video.
Yes,
Number one secret and solution to being able to find your balance point and ride, as I just said, balanced, fluidly, and feeling secure. And the word secure is not just about confident. It's you literally, your seat, you feel secure the way I teach it. So this is going to be exciting. So I hope you all check out my YouTube channel and at least look at the snippet. It'll be a few minutes. I don't know. Sometimes our snippets are anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes long,
Mhm.
depending on how long the video is.
Yes, this one, I think it's like 8 minutes long.
Ooh,
So,
it's
and-
juicy.
Yeah, I tried to put a little bit more
Yeah,
than just
yeah.
to,
Your hair looks really good like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that looks really good on you.
Thank you. Sorry guys, I forgot to plug my charger in.
Oh
So
yeah, don't
I've been
do
working
that.
and-
Like the other week, I was plugged in, but I wasn't plugged in, and I didn't know that. And all of a sudden, I think that was for our private Facebook group for the Mastery membership. I disappeared.
I've been working and trying to do it.
So yeah, so that's exciting. How long is the long version for the?
26 minutes.
That's excellent. So there's a lot. There's a lot.
There is a lot.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And that video, I'm not sure if it's the leg position, the video for this Friday or the following next week, where we talk about the foot position, where I'm actually trotting Lovey around.
That's next week.
Yep. And you get to see that I've got a nice loose leg and foot, but it's not a sloppy or floppy leg.
Exactly.
And I'm sitting a nice collected trot on Lovey, who's a big mover. My big thoroughbred.
She's so pretty.
She is. She's big. She's a big, lots of action. So yeah, so these are all the little secrets to helping people ride better.
Oh yeah.
This is exciting. So I get emails all the time from people all over the world, and I love staying in contact with people and helping them with their questions to the best of my ability, because it can take a lot of time sometimes answering. And one of the things that came across my email, as well as one of the recent conversations I had with the new Mastery membership member, was about my foundation training. And that's what I want to talk about today, but I'm going to go about it a little differently. And I've got two particular topics. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because it comes up every week, either in emails or Facebook questions or comments or YouTube, is, and I don't think horse people are realizing this, students are realizing this, that you are lacking a foundation. And that was brought to my attention yesterday in my one-on-one strategy call with a new member to my Mastery membership. She specifically joined the program, number one, because it was a foundation program. And she's realized later in her horsemanship that she has a lot of holes. She's accomplished a lot of really cool things,
I get that.
but she was under the impression that these more advanced movements with her horses were going to allow her to do other advanced movements. And she's realizing, whether it's liberty and under saddle, and she's realizing that she can't do them. And she also is a very spiritual person, and she understands Taoism. And so she started doing some searching, and sure enough, my YouTube channel came up, Tao Horsemanship. And she was thrilled to then find the website and the Mastery membership program, and that it encompasses all of these things. It's very holistic, obviously. It's a holistic approach to teaching you and your horse. So it's not just about training. It's not just a step-by-step mechanical, technical training program. It is a holistic approach to teaching you how to learn and how to develop your horse, but not just develop them with a few courses or a few techniques. It's to develop your horse from start to finish, according to my training system. And my training system starts on the ground, and it starts at liberty, and it starts with relationship. And then we develop the liberty into the free lunge and the straightness training and the balance. And then we take it into a more refined approach through our line lunging, where the horse is on line. And then we teach the horse several different, you and your horse, several different lunging techniques of mine to develop even more strength, straightness, and balance. And before you know it, as you progress through my program, my training system, your horse is able to do on a 5-meter circle a collected canter.
Mm-hmm. Sundance.
Yeah, and Lovey when she's in the right space. Yeah, and so did Legend and Smoking. And then you guys can see the videos. So I don't just talk the talk. You guys can always visit my YouTube channel, and you'll see years of walking the walk with my own horses and students' horses.
I don't think your foundation or anything has ever changed in all these years that you have done.
I know. Isn't that crazy? We were just talking about that. When I got back into horses in 2004, and then I started learning and studying, and I took 2 years off. Just a quick background about me. I took 2 years off so I could study, and then I had my Trinity, my first 3 horses, getting back into horses later in my 30s. And so that would be 2004 to 2006, 2007, and I say 2004 to 2008, I was really developing. So I got back into horses, and I started learning from leading professionals all over the world. And I did that for a couple of years. And then after I absorbed and got a baseline of education, which I knew this is all about learning. I knew this was important. If I was going to want to go out there and teach correctly as a teacher, but also train horses and understand the horses, I needed to learn from some of the great, and learn is what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And then after I absorbed as much as I could with different disciplines and different trainers and different styles for a couple of years, I then started to apply that knowledge to as many horses as possible. And I worked with a lot of rescues, local rescues. And then I had my personal 3 horses at the time. So by the time 2008 came around, I had my program.
That's awesome.
In my first apprenticeship, so cool. I had my first student come. Well, I had several, but my first real student, which is Chelsea, and we're still great friends, like sisters. And Chelsea came to me after her 4-year education. She decided that she did not want to do what her mother spent I love this story, $100,000 on her education, Delaware University. And Chelsea's like, I don't want to do it. And then she found me at one of the little local expos, and she's like, I want to work with horses. So then she comes in and becomes one of my most significant apprentices. And she spends 5.5 years with me. It was amazing talent. Yeah. And so by the time she came in 2008, I had my program. I only had 3 DVDs at the time. I had 3 DVDs. It wasn't everything, but it was the beginning. But I had the tutorial. I had everything written out. And it's the same tutorial that my mastery membership students get when they join the online program. So you're right. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing has ever changed.
I mean, I take a lifetime of experience with horses, and I did a lot in my younger years, especially with my personal horse, especially working with a local barn. And I developed a lot on my own. And it's just really cool. And then when I got back into horses, I was ambitious. I was jumping back in. I'd lost a lot of time in my previous career in life. And I'm like, you know what? I need to catch up, who's the latest and greatest out there, and let me learn as much of the techniques and this, from centered riding to reining to dressage, classical dressage. And then in 2012 and in 2013, I became a working equitation certified instructor down here. And so that really refined, but the program, the mastery membership is the foundation program. And then when I became certified as a working equitation instructor, that refined my classical dressage. And so that's not, that refinement isn't in, like we're not doing lead changes and, canter pirouettes and piaffe in the mastery membership program. We're not doing the refinement of it, but it's still when I created the mastery membership, those exercises are from my working equitation. It's at a very, beginner elementary level for the horse and the rider, but it's really cool.
Awesome.
It's really cool. And that foundation program of mine has worked for over 2,000 horses. I mean, it works for every horse because it's the approach that you're taking that makes the difference. So each horse is learning the same thing. So it gives them a really well-rounded education and foundation, both on the ground and under saddle. But of course, my approach with each horse was unique to that horse. And that's the biggest difference. And I find, and we mention this here and there in our podcasts or webinars, I find that a lot of other professional trainers out there, there's very few that have programs.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, nobody has one that I know of, like, except me. Even if you go to Natural Horsemanship, they have a million DVDs, but those, I don't know if those DVDs are step by step, that this is where you start, and then this is the next building block, and this is how you develop. I mean, a lot of that thought process for me was coming, I'm so glad at an older age, coming back into horses and also reading about the great masters, specifically Tom Dorrance, but who's, the guru or the godfather of natural horsemanship in the United States, but the great masters of classical dressage. And my biggest guide, and I didn't know anyone in this field, so to speak, was the Spanish School of Riding. I was so enthralled with the fact that, the great masters from Xenophon, even Xenophon had a guide and a formula for developing horses. And Xenophon is our godfather to dressage. He created dressage. He created the training system from 400 AD. So I was studying the writings of the art of horsemanship back then, and then I was studying the great masters, which were in books, as they're all gone, they're dead.
Yeah, and you posted that book not too long ago.
The Xenophon one, I did. I think I did for the mastery membership students. But so here I was studying what was available to me in the States, but I couldn't get my hands, and I was taking a lot of lessons from, gold medalist, classical dressage, Grand Prix.
That's really cool.
Yes, it was and it wasn't. I mean, they were winning and they were teaching and instructing, but what I learned was they never trained the horses. They were just phenomenal riders, and they were trained to ride the horse's movement and execute the command.
Yeah.
But they couldn't teach me how to train my horse.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I was bouncing around to all these different FEI, Grand Prix, 4th level, and and I'm like, okay, you're working on me, but my horse needs to develop, because this is what we're going to end up talking about today in this podcast. A little bit more is my horse needs to develop. I'm not going to sit here and trot my horse around and exhaust him when he has no strength, stamina, or balance.
Yes.
I don't either until I can find the feel. I don't even know what I'm trying to find.
Right.
So it was thank God I had money then to do this. It was so frustrating and disappointing, but it made me look for the answers, and I kept having to go back to the books, like the Spanish School of Riding. Like the Spanish School of Riding has a training system, and the way that they care about the horses, and they start them much later. It's almost an embarrassment if the horse goes through the training system and finishes before the age of 10, because they want them in their early teens. And then because they create such phenomenal athletes, the horses don't, they stay sound because they know how to use their bodies correctly. So nothing is rushed or pushed. So yeah, just to give you you too, Sabrina, a background about why my program still works is look at all the time and effort I put into it, not just to learn myself, as an instructor and a horse trainer, but as a teacher.
Right.
How methodically do I want to develop not just the horse, but develop my student
Yes.
along with the horse. And remember, the program was my apprenticeship program. It was in my foundation. It was my personal roadmap or formula or guide to developing horses. It was mine. I created it, but it was also what my apprentices were learning so that they could learn this way of being and working with horses. Yeah, so pretty cool. And I keep progressing and evolving. Like I said, I mean, it's a foundation. It's not about advanced levels of performance. However, it is the foundation of it. And as I've told some of my mastery membership students, if you guys just keep studying this and studying this, it organically will produce, because it does for me, produce the upper level movements.
Makes sense.
So just think if you've got your horse biomechanically so collected and balanced that they can do on a 12-foot or a 10-foot lead rope with slack, 10-foot lead rope, pick up a straight collected canter around you while you stand still. This is my program. This is what you get to. You have to work towards this. You stand still and the horse is straight and collected around you. That's not even a 5 meter, it's less than a 5 meter circle. And so that, if you keep developing that will become part of your canter pirouette. And then you have to ride that.
And that's from a walk to a canter.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't even do the trot in the middle.
No, that or a complete halt. If you're, we're so out of shape and we haven't been working together in a long time. I would not even ask my horses to.
It's too hot right now.
Yeah. Oh, it's brutal. But yes, yep. My horses have such a strong foundation, and we haven't been schooling or training for over a year now.
Right.
That I could just give me a couple of weeks to get us back in shape.
Yes.
We haven't forgotten a thing. Our muscle memory, and you can just tell by the way me and my horses carry ourselves with balance and collection. We just don't have any strength.
Right.
So we'd have to get back into some level of stamina and stretching, get our bodies stretched. I stretch all the time. And you watch them, even when they're playing and they take off into the big field, they're so through. Lovey is so through at that trot or canter. The main thing
that I always notice about people is a lot of their horses, and mine do it too, because they're not as collected, of course. They drag their feet behind them.
Yeah.
I don't think your horses.
They don't pick up. No, they don't. That's a good point. They don't.
Yeah, your horses have never done that, and I paid attention to that.
I think Zor does, but Zor is lazy and out of shape. But that would be the only one. If we started to work with him, he'd be a little lazy. But you've seen him pick up.
I've never really seen him doing it.
That's a good point. That's a very good point for people to pay attention to.
Kind of jealous.
Well, that's why we're talking about this foundation, and what we're going to keep expanding on today is that once you have it, the mental and muscle memory never goes away. And so let's back up to learning, and real quick, do we have any questions from anybody?
No,
remember, this is hi everybody, thank you for joining us. So this is our live radio show, our live podcast. It is a Q&A. So Sabrina's on the other side here, ready for anybody to jump in. There's no wrong, stupid questions. I don't think like that. I love it. Whatever you got, bring it. And it doesn't even have to be related to our conversation or our topic. I'm just glad you're here. And if I can help in any way, let us know if we can help in any way.
Awesome. Yeah, right. That's great of you to do that.
Well, you know how passionate I am about this work.
Absolutely.
And you are obviously just as passionate because you're here helping me get this out there.
Yeah.
And this is the foundation. There's nobody teaching it. No. Nobody's teaching foundation. No. And just your pleasure horse, just your trail riding, even if you just want to go out trail riding every day or several days a week for hours, you don't realize how much damage you're actually doing to your horse.
No,
you don't. You have no idea. how is your horse moving? Are they moving correctly? There's the whole study, the biomechanics, which we're going to touch on a little bit today. Not to mention, is your horse balanced and do they have the strength? Now, we know that in time they'll build up the stamina,
Right.
but stamina doesn't mean that your horse is moving correctly.
Right. No, absolutely.
One of the best examples I can give is my riding areas are in grass. Sometimes they're in dirt, but they're in grass. And so when it rains or we have a fresh dew, and I know better, I won't be trotting or cantering a horse around if I know they're going to slip. That means if I know they don't have balance. But when you get to this level of foundation that I teach, and it's not, it is advanced, but it's not. This is in the Mastery Membership Program. So this is for everyone. This isn't for people like me that want to become trainers or working equitation instructors. We can take that program and excel. But just for your everyday rider that wants longevity and soundness in their horse and correct movement, and you want to be able to ride a beautiful, smooth, easy, fluid movement with your horse. You want to be able to ride that with your horse with ease and confidence. The example I'm giving is at this level that the program produces, I can get out there and my horses come right up, sit back and come underneath themselves and collect their movement. They don't fall, they don't trip. Even if they do trip, between your reflexes and picking them up and them coming up underneath themselves, they are spot on. So many of our accidents don't happen. I get people, not often, but I do get people, why don't you wear a helmet, Caroline? And I'm like, look, I'm as safe as anyone can be with a helmet because my horses are safe. Not just mentally safe, but my horses are physically so balanced, I don't worry about those things. And I don't have to. Not to mention, I have, and this is what I teach, a level of awareness. I know when my horse is off mentally or physically, and I know when to not push it, okay? When to not push it, and how to step back and set things up. And that's part of what the program teaches you too. I've heard and seen the articles of, master riders and master school horses tripping during a schooling or a show, and the dressage rider, this is particularly dressage riders, falling during their horse tripping and being either paralyzed for life or dead. And the point I want to make, and this is a whole nother subject, is something's wrong with that horse. And I don't care if that horse was a schoolmaster in their 4th level and they were getting ready to compete. The fact that they tripped on a flat, smooth surface, something's wrong with that picture. Yeah. And my initial impression, from experience, my impression is that the horse was probably more anxious than anyone realized and showed that anxiety by freezing up. And so often our horses go into self-preservation mode when obviously they don't feel safe. And one of the first self-preservation modes is freezing. And freezing shows up when we ride with our horses tripping a lot. Tripping. They're not thinking and they're a little paralyzed with their movement. They're frozen. They're checking out. It's just like a person. And I can't tell you how many horses have come to me that were the opposite of overreactive, transparent overreactive. They were inwardly reacting and freezing up. And the tripping is a number one sign. And so every one of those dressage accidents at that level, all those horses tripped, you guys. It wasn't because they spooked and took off and the rider fell. They all tripped. What? You're on a flat surface. And I'm just telling you right now that we train on an unflat surface with roots. And I have to trim that one branch, by the way, that was hitting me in front of the camera yesterday. And our surface isn't too unlevel, but it's not perfect. And it's not perfectly level. And it's grass and there's dew. So, I'm creating a thinking partnership between the two of you thinking and being aware and taking your time, and your horse being in that space with you, mental space and emotional space with you. It's so important. This is all part of that foundation. It's all part of what I was studying with classical dressage, is making sure that you never overfaced your horse, that everything that you were doing or learning, you were making sure that the horse felt good about it. Because when they don't feel good about it, it's very similar to us. They start to shut down and react, and things just go south, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Any question? Yes.
We have
Oh,
a question.
good. Oh, good.
So Rebecca said, are there differences in working gated horses because they move more bilaterally than non-gated?
Great question, Rebecca, about gated and non-gated horses. Yes, I've worked with probably almost as many gated as I have non-gated. So gated horses, in my experience, well, in scientifically proven, let's start there. Gated horses, as we know, they transfer their weight more equally amongst all four legs, where non-gated horses, most of their weight is on the forehand. 60 to 70% of a non-gated horse, which has so much to do with grazing too, is on the forehand. So non-gated horses, not only do they transfer their weight equally, they are also predominantly, and this is all gated horses, it doesn't matter what gait, what gated breed, they predominantly are weaker in the hind end. That's the number one weakness in gated horses. They're weak in the hind end. Now, you can look at a gated horse and they don't have the same muscling most of the time. I mean, I've seen Tennessee Walkers have two distinctive body styles. One can be very tall, like 17 hands, and lanky. And I've seen them built like brick shit houses. They almost look like a warm blood or a quarter horse. Not that they'll have as much defined muscling, but they're thicker. So I know that the Tennessee Walker, that gated breed predominantly has two very distinctive body types. I've also seen very Gumby, tall, 17-hand Gumby like Tennessee Walkers, also smaller and Gumby and thinner and narrower. And seen that in the Missouri Foxtrotter. I think our Pasafinos are predominantly the same kind of body size. Peruvian Pasos are different, a little bit different and thicker necks and so forth. But because they're so weak in the hind end, that also attributes to how you're being taught to ride them. And I disagree with all of that. I disagree with how you guys are riding gated horses. So what happens when gated horses come to me, and to give you one of my secrets here, is that I train them to not gait. So they go through my program. Obviously, all horses do, doesn't matter your breed, your temperament, your age, your discipline. You all go through my foundation training program, my system. But I want the gated to trot, because it's so important to build that longitudinal stretch that I require. Eventually, these horses will start to stretch. It's Pilates, basically. My lunging methods are about Pilates. It's all about lengthening and strengthening the muscle. And of course, that's going to, the 2-beat trot is really going to stretch and build that hind end strength. And then it's so much easier for a gated horse to actually pick up the canter. And most gated breeds can do a 2-beat trot and a 3-beat canter. Most of them can. So that's like my number one way of developing them. So
That's really, I never heard of that.
now I know it's my own, it's my own way of studying and going, you know what, it's, you know, why, and questioning, why are you riding them like this? You know, and it's because you want them to get back on their hind end and ride them and get off their forehand, but it doesn't help because you're not creating the strength back there. Did I answer her question?
To me, it made sense.
What was it? What was it again, just
Rebecca,
in case? Yeah.
Are there differences in working gated horses because they move more bilaterally than
So,
non-gated?
yeah, so I guess, Rebecca, my question would be, for me, no. I train gated horses the exact same way. And what happens is their gait is smoother. And you don't have all this tremendous head bobbing. And their gait is a lot smoother, obviously, more fluid, and they're so much stronger in the hind end. So all breeds get trained the same way. And because they are naturally inclined to gait, it's not hard to get them gaiting again at all, but it's going to change the gait completely. It's going to be so much smoother.
Yeah.
Rocky Mountains have been a big one for me. Paso's Rocky, Tennessee, Missouri Foxtrotter, and I've had quite a few saddlebreds. And a lot of these horses are here, right? The saddlebred, the Tennessee, the Missouri, they're way up here. The Rocky and the Paso are a lot, well, it depends on the Paso, but the Rocky and the Kentucky Mountain, they're much more relaxed. But yeah, I train them the same. And it just, everything I do improves the gait. It doesn't matter if it's gated or non-gated. It totally, and that's all about the purity of the gait. And that's being classically trained.
Cool.
Yeah.
We have a couple more questions.
Okay, let's go. Yeah.
Regina, roughly, what would be a biomechanical foundation time frame to get my horse safe for trail riding?
Oh, I love Regina. So we're going to get into the biomechanics in a little bit. So Regina, we're going to get to that question, but let me read a little preface first about how we're going to segue into the biomechanics, because it has to do teaching the human, the student, about biomechanics has so much to do with training your eye first. And that's what I want to talk about right now. And then we can talk about time, because there is no real time, because every horse, like human, is going to be different. So, but I'll give you an approximation. This is great. So just hang on, Regina. Learning how to learn and before we train. So this is fantastic, because I want to talk about biomechanics specifically today. But first we have to talk about learning, because everybody just wants to jump in, and what you guys are being taught out there is going to hurt you and your horse. You're not being taught the principles, and you're not being given enough knowledge and education before you actually practice. And so there's all these quick videos and tutorials and courses, and you really need a strong knowledge foundation and visual foundation before you actually practice and apply what you've learned. And so that's really where I wanted to start with today. Learning how to learn and why it's so important, and before we actually get into the practice of training. So I kind of talked about it already. We really need to wrap our brains around how important it is to become educated, both visually and in the material itself. Create the mental memory. So it's not just a visual memory, but studying. And I don't want to hear the excuse, well, I'm not a good learner, or I don't like to study. All these horse people, I'm a horse person too. Everybody says predominantly, well, I'm visual, and I need the kinesthetics or the tactile. I need to actually do it. That's all good, but you got to understand the principles, the theory, the concepts. You've got to be able to look at the dots or the pieces and connect them. And so without that connection, you're going to have holes. You're always going to have holes, and nobody gets that. You're not being taught that. You're going to have holes. And so creating the visual understanding and the visual memory, and it's not just studying words and creating that memory, it's literally understanding how the biomechanics work and how to begin it. And even if I were to tell you, which I couldn't today, how to begin exactly, there are so many subtle nuances to every gait and the correct movement within the gait itself and the transitions of the gait. There are so many subtle nuances. Meaning, how is the horse traveling throughout their body? Are they relaxing and creating a longitudinal stretch? Are they tracking and pushing their hind end underneath of them? Are they traveling straight, which has to happen first? And then you have to be taught how to guide the movement, which I teach in my program, how to guide that movement and develop it so that the horse can come underneath themselves and create that hind end strength, which in dressage terms is what we call being through and forward. And then also it's going to be how we begin creating the elasticity in the movement. And the elasticity in the movement is basically another word for collection. So being able to spring into the movement, hold the movement, and come back out of the movement very smoothly and fluidly. And so when we're talking about, Regina, biomechanics, we're talking about creating an athlete in your horse. So this is one of the subjects I wanted to talk about today. So I want to bring up a couple of some terminology, so that we all have a common understanding, because there's a lot of misinterpreted words out there and misunderstood words. So I often hear that horses are natural athletes. No, they're not. You have to understand what the word athlete means. To become an athlete, it means, yes, you have talent, but you have to have training. You have to have a trained skill. What horses are is they are talented. And so when we see a horse, a talented horse, we see them out there moving naturally, gracefully, beautifully. We see them moving for just a few seconds though. We don't see them traveling that way for hours or days every week. And so it's no different than teaching you or me how to run a 10K. Now, I don't care if you don't want to run a 10K. I don't want to run a 10K. But let's say we did want to run a 10K. We just wouldn't start running. There are so many building blocks. We'd have to learn how to stretch properly, not to mention the correct shoes, not to mention maybe there might be some weight training depending on who you study with, just to help. But usually a good power walk is how you would start building your stamina. See, everything begins at the walk is where I'm headed with this. See,
good point.
Everything begins with the walk. It's just like before you run, you have to learn to walk. Before you walk, you have to learn to crawl. So we all want to start like our horses. All the biomechanics always begins at a really big, stretchy walk with our horses. And a walk that we have nothing, we're not riding them. This is all lunging, both free lunge and online. It's all through lunging so that the horse's back is free and open, and we're not influencing them in any way with our weight or our lack of balance or just getting in the way. So the horse is being lunged now at the walk. So it's similar to us learning. So we would build up our stamina at a big brisk walk, and it might only be 20 minutes the first 5 days.
If that.
Yeah. And then we would increase slowly. And so for the biomechanics, for the horse, it's no different. You know, again, it's like Pilates. And so there's the big, loose working walk is to lengthen and strengthen those muscles and to create strength, balance, and elasticity at that level. And so we're looking at a big walk though. We're not looking at a little lazy walk. We want a big, brisk, stretchy walk. Often our horses will pick up the trot. You want to bring them back down to a walk. And this takes time. It takes time for the horse to get focused and disciplined. And, you know, there's so many variables. I don't know how well your horse does in a round pen. So many of us are taught to just run our horses in there. So to get a horse to just go into a round pen and begin walking and be relaxed at the walk is what's going to allow them to drop their head and eventually have a longitudinal stretch. So while I'd like to continue talking about that, that is a really deep subject, biomechanics, not to mention the art of lunging, which I teach. I have an online course all about that. It's a really deep subject, but to kind of sum it up for you, you would begin again I prefer the round pen and at least a 50-foot diameter round pen because we can get them straight on a circle. And you're going to want them, if they can be free lunge, to free lunge while you're guiding with the lunge whip, not chasing them. You're just guiding the body. But I have to train your eye though. You know, it's more than that. But at least we're talking about wrapping our brain around the process of it and using ourselves as an example to gain some level of feel of what it's like for your horse. You just, it's like if I want, I've helped people get their horses in shape for endurance training and endurance competitions. So I've done a lot of that. And again, you've got to think like a professional. When we go to the gym, we hire, I can't think of it right now, professional, when you go
trainer.
to the, you hire professional trainer at the gym. So I became the professional trainer of the horses that would come to me to become athletes, professional athletes. So when you're looking at, you know, whether it's endurance riding or eventing or any type of pleasure trail riding, we don't even think, well, I just want to go out and ride my horse. Well, I know I've been there, and it's like, yeah, but how do you want to ride them? And how often are you riding them? And, you know, trail riding is definitely one of my favorite things to do with horses. And yeah, you have to really understand the process and the steps to building them to becoming that level, to become that level of an athlete, to be able to go out, let's say 3 or 5 days a week and 2 hours each trail ride. That's a minimum 2 hours, right? Even if you're walking, that's a lot. What are you doing that every day with your body? I know it's a horse, you guys.
Well, I watch TV and I'm just exhausted watching them.
So think about, let's put this in perspective about the wild horses. They have enough stamina to travel up to 20 miles. They usually don't go more than 20 miles, up to 20. Doesn't mean they travel 20 miles a day, but up to 20 miles a day. But that's because they're constantly moving. Are your horses constantly moving out here to search for food and water? That's why wild horses are in such great shape, and they can travel those far distances in a day without running, without exhausting themselves. That's just walking. It's because they move a lot. So they are constantly using those muscles and staying in shape. And so you have to think, kind of backtrack and think about your horse's level of activity on a daily basis. And, whether that's just free without you or when you are schooling them to get them in shape. How are you going about it? And it should be in stages. And so as a trainer, if I'm getting one of my horses back in shape, it's usually because my guys have at this level of foundation, it'll be about 4 days a week. And it might be 20 minutes to a half an hour of this free walk, this free lunging. And the first 5 days or 5 sessions, we're going to go in the round pen or go online and just do a big stretchy walk in both directions, 10 minutes in each direction for 5 days. That's it, a walk, but a big, you got to know what I'm talking about, a big stretchy walk. This is when their noses are stretching longitudinally. Again, this is Pilates for horses, the way I teach it. So at least a good 5 days. And I'll be able to monitor, you can monitor any horse by the way they're breathing. And so when a horse, like a person's out of shape, they're going to breathe. They're going to be breathing. Their nostrils are going to be going big time. Okay. So it has nothing to do with sweat. That's another thing. Like I sweat profusely more than most people. So you're going to have horses that are going to sweat more easily. So don't base your horse being in shape or out of shape with sweat. It's how they're taking in air. Bottom line, number one. And so if they're really having a hard time, you're pushing them too hard, way too hard. And then you have to factor in the heat, and is that affecting them? And, Yeah, since I've moved to Florida years ago, I've seen a lot of horses down here have breathing issues, heaves, oh my gosh, from allergies. So you have to be very aware of all of these potential factors that are going to determine how, see, it's not that easy, determine how long it's going to take you to get your horse in shape. I can guarantee you that a good, steady, no more than 5 days a week, no more than a half an hour each day, if you do 2 weeks, okay, 5 days this week, 5 days the next week of a really good, vigorous walk with your horse, it's gonna be a game changer. That in and of itself is definitely gonna build a lot more stamina, and you'll be able to rate it by obviously how easy the horse is traveling within those 5 days to 2 weeks and how they're breathing. That's your barometer. Like all of a sudden, you know, the horse is going to want to keep trotting instead of walking because a trot's easier. They can do shallow, short strides and hollow out at the trot instead of really stretching and using all of their body. See, it gets deep, the biomechanics. The horse, you're teaching the horse, again, how to use their entire body correctly and effectively. And then once that's ingrained and it becomes a foundation, you're going to see them doing it all the time, and they pretty much maintain. That's why it only take me and my horses 2 weeks to get right back into upper level. Yeah.
And how much more confident do they get? I mean,
well, the whole process, they get confident because there's
so
so much that's involved.
And strut around.
Yeah, they do. They do. It's really pretty.
It's like us.
Yeah.
You know, when you stay
You
in
do
shape,
feel, yeah, when you do stay in
great.
shape, it's easier for you to just pick up and just run a little bit, and it feels good, and you feel good about
And
yourself.
then they're more happy to see you, and
They're not fat and lazy.
yes, it's so much.
That's a good point. You know, and that's a point I was going to make too in this podcast, is just how horses feel physically, you know, affects their performance, whatever that level of performance is. It could just be trail riding. Like, you know, oh, my horse doesn't like the arena work anymore. Well, what is your arena work? You know, if you're not thinking about how to set your horse up as an athlete, then you're just going in there and running the crap out of them and trying to force them to do specific movements that they're not ready to do. And then they're going to hate it, and they're going to hurt, and they're going to use their bodies incorrectly.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. That's how those wind puffs come about, and sprains, and arthritis is so bad.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Awful, guys.
You're right, girl. You are right about that. And that's predominantly in most of our horses.
Yes, I have it in one of mine. And before I had her.
I know, me too.
4, and she already had wind puffs. Awful. Sad.
It's like, so Lovey, it only spent a year training for the track. She never raced. I think she had one start, but she never raced. And Lovey, I think now, you know, I took her training wicked slow because she's 10. And she's had months off, a year off. I mean, she's had a ton of time off, but I don't think she has any wind puffs.
No.
Now, you know, Sundance does.
Sundance does.
And those are from me. Those are from me.
Oh, those are from you?
Yeah. I mean, I know she had training prior. Can't remember. And we know that, but I think, and her training's been really slow, but I think between getting kicked, you see all the damage in her back.
Yeah.
One of them is from kicking. It's hard. I know Legend came with a ton of shit because he was 8 years old by the time Dad found him. So yeah, and Zor, I wanted to avoid that with my big boy. So his training's been really slow.
Yeah, Pistol, she actually has on her leg, on her front leg, a bowed out. It looks like it's bowed out because they ran her so hard. One of them went away.
That's what you call, it's not a bowed tendon. I know what you're talking about. It's like the bone. It's from impact. Yeah, it's too much
Yeah,
impact.
I mean, she's fine with it. She's never limping. One of them went away because she had them both legs.
Yeah,
But the other one still hasn't gone away. And we had her for 3 years now.
it's crazy.
It's sad.
Do we have any more questions,
We
dear?
have one more.
Okay.
We have Kelsey. How do you motivate your horse to want to work? You said that to develop a relationship with them, that they love to motivate them and to make the work enjoyable. So where should I start? And more specifically, what should I do to open that world up with a new horse?
Oh, I love it, Kelsey. What a great question. You're in the right place. So, joy, love, relationship. I always talk about this, so maybe I think you've been on quite a few of our podcasts. At least someone with your name has. Let us know if you have, because I think you show up, and that's wonderful that you're here if you do. So horses are motivated. Number one, their number one motivation is relationship. And so again, I've studied wild horses, I've worked with wild horses, and they are always together in community. They're organized, they're socialized, they have social order, they have deep, long-lasting friendships. One of the coolest things is to understand that wild horses, predominantly the stallion and the mare, the lead mare, they mate for life. Doesn't mean the stallion won't go off and impregnate another mare, but they mate for life. And then the offspring that they have, they go off and get impregnated, and they bring their pregnant selves back because they want to stay with the matriarchs and they want to stay with the community and the family. So then they give birth. And so that's how we end up with, there's no inbreeding. And there's always rogue lone stallions trying to steal mares and impregnate. So long story, not now, computer wanted to restart. Go figure.
It's Kelsey.
It's Kelsey. Okay, Kelsey, great. So relationship is so important. And if you've seen my YouTube videos, you're always seeing my horses muzzle me, nuzzle me, hug me. I mean, I bring them out of the stalls with my equipment, and at Liberty they come out, I tack them up. I mean, they love being with me. And that's what I teach you guys. So this isn't an easy thing to learn, because there's so much to learn about ourselves first and how accessible we make ourselves in that relationship. And once you start opening up your mind and your heart to all these possibilities, it's a game changer completely. And this is creating the level of relationship in the work that I teach you is the game changer. And your horses are always willing to be with you. Often my horses throw their halters, they pick them off the rack outside their stall and throw them. Yeah, to come pick me, please pick me. So I make it a joyful experience because of the love. A lot easier said than done. And I'm training my horses upper level, slowly, progressively, but upper level. So there's some really hard things that we're working on, but it's never hard for us because we enjoy the movement, we enjoy the time together, we enjoy the learning together. So you've got to learn about yourself and learn about your horse's nature. And of course, whatever negative, behaviors that our horses so often acquire from bad experiences, we've got to learn about those and how to peel away and get rid of them so that we can replace the negative with positive. So I hope that, it's a really big subject, and I'm all about this subject that you just asked, but it's a lot harder than you think, because the minute I have to train you, and that's why my program is so successful, because I work so much on you guys, developing you to be where you need to be for your horse and to be who you need to be for your horse, both in love and leadership. So the love obviously is the friendship in the union that you create, but you got to be a leader. You got to guide them right now as you both are learning. Somebody has to be the guide. And horses are natural followers. Instinctively, they're natural followers. And so they're always looking for someone that they respect as a leader, but most importantly, they're looking for a partner too. So it's teaching you also how to balance that, because it's not all or nothing or one thing and not the other. It's learning where to be and when to be with all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, because I don't think I've ever seen anybody talk about where they want to help us as much as they do the horse.
Have to, because what's the example? I can go in there.
Mhm.
I've done it the last freaking 10 years and I'm so burnt out. How many horses, how many thousands, every horse I work with, I personally assess before I work with them. Even if they get dropped off, or they used to get dropped off at my training center, the first thing is I'm going to wrap myself around who is this horse and what's the best approach for this horse to learn this system. But the point I'm making is you guys have got to learn this, because I can go in there and make changes instantaneously, but it's going to do you no good if you don't learn how to connect and communicate with your horse this way.
Absolutely.
And it's got to start with you.
Absolutely.
I've got to train you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Mastery of Membership does. It starts
step by step.
Well, it's a spirituality for those people that aren't ready to jump into the Mastery Membership. The spirituality, discovering the spirituality through the Art of Liberty training, is also the first course in the Mastery Membership.
Right.
So people can sign up for that, jump in, and it's developing you, because the spirituality course is all about you guys.
Yes.
But it's also developing you to develop this relationship. So while I'm developing you, you're learning how to develop the relationship in that course. And then you're taking that into the actual lunging, the free lunging, the online lunging, the biomechanics of all of that is found in that course.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I hope I answered that. It's not an easy answer, Kelsey. I know.
It's a good question. And I think you did a great job answering it.
The video thank you, hon. The video library that that we sell and we videotape for every week.
Mm-hmm.
The video library is a great way for people who can't afford the courses to jump in and learn. But I kind of look at it in two ways. It's like, for more advanced people, more skilled women and horsemen, the video library is very beneficial.
Yes.
It's one lesson. It's like I always say, you can kill two birds with one stone. One lesson gives you 10 to 20 learning lessons within one video. Let's put it that way. One video gives you 10 to 20 learning lessons. But that's for people that are more skilled, because you have a more trained eye, you've got experience, you're going to pick up on stuff, not to mention the finesse of what you're seeing in the videos. And then there's the other spectrum for people that love my method, but are not that skilled, but want to learn. You're only going to be able to get so much because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You only know what you know.
Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from buying the video library, because there's hundreds of videos.
There is for beginners as there is for advanced riders.
Yeah, I guess so. But there's a ton.
There's a whole lot. Sometimes I think a little bit too much.
Yeah, I know. I know I give away a lot. I do. Like I said, one video probably has 10 to 20 lessons in it. Yeah. All these different areas that we don't just deal. Well, today's video is on the leg position, but the leg position, but we also have to talk about a couple of other variables,
Yeah. And then I'm like, Caroline.
I'm getting better though. We are starting to get more, what's the word I want to say?
Stay on the point.
Focused. Yeah. It's just, exactly. It's like really like pinpointing, like this is exactly what we're talking about today. I'm not going off in 10 different directions.
Yes.
But some of the other videos weren't that easy. They're so esoteric or intangible. And it's like, just like this question, well, how do I make the work enjoyable for my horse and I?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I could talk about 100 different things,
Yeah.
ingredients.
Yeah. And when you're so passionate about it,
It's hard to shut me up.
Yeah. You just talk about it because you want it to come out.
Well, and I want everybody to learn. I want
Yes.
everybody to experience the magic of it, and
Absolutely.
not just in fleeting moments, but all the time.
Exactly. So
Anybody else before
Yeah.
we wrap up?
that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you check out our short version or trailer snippet of this week's Everything Horses and More's video library. This week's video is Where Should My Leg Be When Riding? And this is a common mistakes beginner riders make. I also want to emphasize, for me, with the students that I've seen, it's like with all students though. I don't care how advanced you are, until you get to the performance level in dressage, 4th level and higher, or reining, you all have the wrong leg position, most of you. Even professionals out there teaching. It drives me crazy. That's another thing I want to end with. The more we talk about this, the more I understand why our training in the United States has gone wrong, on so many levels. Where I'm headed with that real quick is there are so many backyard horse trainers. It drives me crazy. And young people teaching, people that are 30 and younger. And you need experience in this field. In this field, the equine professional field, it more than anything requires decades of experience and thousands of horses and students. And then once you've been working like that, then you have to be able to identify patterns. And when you can identify patterns, good and bad, that's when you're able to say, aha, X amount of horses show the same kind of behavioral pattern when I do X, Y, and Z.
Good point.
And then when you get to that point, you're able to start to diagnose that negative behavior and troubleshoot and problem solve. But then you have to explore how to problem solve. So you see, it drives me crazy. And then I look at the United States, because I have a lot of international students and we talk about this stuff all the time. And, there's pros and cons to the States. I'm not going to beat our country up, because God knows I love our country and everything about it. But particularly, I'm just talking about how we're always looking for quick fixes and solutions, and we want it now. And it's not like that in Europe. It really isn't. And it has so much to do with the culture and the history, being older, and people are a lot more patient and slow, and they take their time and more disciplined. And so, I'm going to keep doing these podcasts to keep bringing awareness to anyone that's willing to listen, that you as a student yourself, out there, take your time to become educated before you just hire an instructor or a trainer. Educate yourself on the different types, and when you find the discipline or the type of training style that you want, look at the different people that are doing it similarly, and then pick one. Don't pick from a multitude of people, because you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to get some quick fixes. A foundation means you have a learning foundation. And a learning foundation is a curriculum or a system that creates a well-rounded base of knowledge for you and your horse. And my test for well-rounded is, how well-rounded is your horse when you get done with my training system? Can you do X, Y, and Z with them? Or are they stuck in the arena? Or are they always stuck on the trail and they don't know how to flex well? They don't know how to collect themselves. They don't know how to supple easily, because you're always on a loose rein. You're always a passenger on the trail. you know, or you're always stuck in the arena and your horse is tight and not correctly being developed. And so mentally and physically they're tight and they might be doing the movements, but they're not doing them correctly. And there's so many, where's your foundation in all of this? And then you're like, oh yeah, man, well, I like how so-and-so does it. I want to be able to do that lateral movement. I had one of my Mastery membership students, and I hope she's not disappointed with the program, but she signed up specifically for the lateral and the suppling. And she is by far more experienced and educated. And I got to work with her horses, and they're phenomenal. The one horse is fantastic. But I just want to hope that, you know, there's so much more that goes into preparing your horse for the lateral and the suppling. Yeah. It's not about cranking on them this way or this way.
We all we see something, we don't see
all the work that goes into it.
Just like, oh, we're gonna do that. Okay, so we get.
I've been there too. I've been there too. You know, one of my horror stories that I told you was my first clinic with Jack, Master Jack Brainerd, in reining with my little Arabian, who I thought we were fantastic. We were coming along fantastic. And then I signed up for an advanced horsemanship clinic and flying lead changes. I had that little Arab of mine wound up so tight. So I've been there. I only knew what I knew. I didn't know what I didn't know. My interpretation, my level of experience and understanding and training. I mean, I thought I got it. I thought I knew what I was doing. And then I mean, just thank God, you know, thank God for that experience, because that was the first and last time anything like that ever happened to me again. Right. It made me, I was so distraught and humbled and disgusted. And when I was alone, I bawled my eyes out and I asked for forgiveness from my horse. And I was humiliated in front of my students. I did it to myself, not Jack, and embarrassed. But it was such an aha awakening moment for me that I never did something like that again. I never went into learning like I knew what was going on. I never did it again. I never put my horses through anything like what I did to Lele.
We all have to learn.
We have to. That was a rude eye opener. So I'm a forever student, and believe me, I groveled and ate a lot of humble pie when I came back into horses because of the lifestyle and the career occupation I had before. I'm very ambitious and driven, and I had another business and it was very successful, and it was my business, and bam, 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 I'm getting it done. Well, you can't be that way with horses. I learned the hard way, but I learned quickly. So it's just passing that along to you guys. You have to have the right mindset for learning. And that's what I'm also trying to put out there and embrace with all of you is the beauty of taking your time with your horse and reminding you about how special and important your relationship is. And if there's one key word or way that can help bring you all back to going slow, is the relationship, is when it gets compromised. And it shows up with your horse not wanting to be with you. I mean, I've been through it all. I've had my horses back in the day run away from me. I had Sundance jump a 4-foot fence, look at me, and take off. Big fuck you. I have had plenty of humbling, but it took a good 2 years to beat me down, because the way I'd put myself through college and my mindset and my, ambition with my prior business. But around horses, you can't be that way. It's only going to take you so far. Or you can be that way, but you're going to kill your horse. You're going to break your horse's spirit. A quick story. I have another student. She and her husband bought the spirituality course not too long ago, and they have a feral 1-year-old, beautiful feral little pink filly. and they're going about it so slow and beautifully. And one of the husband's friends at work said, "Oh, give me that filly, and one day I can break her. I can break her because she's not halter broke." And
You take them, smack them.
oh no, yeah. So it's just really cool because of course they're following my method, and they're going slow, and they have other horses that are confident, trusting, and experienced, so they can learn the method more easily with them.
Awesome.
And then take the same techniques but a different approach with the feral one.
Right.
And it's working. It's working. So it's just really, but here we go back to the typical traditional mindset of we're going to break them.
I see it.
We're not going to take our time. We're not going to fool around with that horse not coming or running from us. We're just going to tie its legs up, throw it on the ground, make it submit or run it into the ground.
Don't stand still.
Manhandle it. Yep, exactly. We see it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't personally see it, but we hear about it all the time.
I see it.
You see it because you go out into that world. I got my own world, but it's all of you that write into me that are horrified and tired of it.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. So there is a better way. As the saying goes, take the time now so it takes less time. Do it right, and until it becomes second nature. And that could be 2 weeks to a month, you guys, before a new pattern is formed for you and your horse. And then it's effortless and fluid. And then you just keep building on that. So I hope I've given some of you some things to think about and some inspiration along the way.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you. And love all of you. May you always be one with your horse. Don't forget to sign up for our podcasts. Well, you know where to come every week. But you can also email us with any questions or topics that you'd like us to talk about.
I put my email address right here on the comments, Sabrina@horsemanship.com.
Okay. And keep sharing this. Pass it on. Okay. We're here to enlighten and show a different way and a better way and a mutually beneficial way. Working like this changes everything in your life for the better. So, all right, God bless, and we'll see you guys here next week. Bye-bye.